Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Leyh. I am the programs manager at San Diego Pride. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I am a Navy veteran. And it is my pleasure to be here with you today, the day before Veterans Day, to talk to some local San Diego veterans. We want to take a minute to celebrate Veterans Day and celebrate the service that our LGBT veterans gave to our country. And we want to talk about some of the accomplishments that our San Diego veterans have given back to this community. We're going to talk to, and you're going to meet some amazing people here, amazing San Diego veterans who have done so much for our community after they served in the military. But first, I want to take just a minute to make sure we understand what a veteran is. A veteran means a person who served in the active military in the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Navy, or Marine Corps. And we have some fantastic veterans that we couldn't even fit on the program today. And I want to just take a minute to mention their names: Bridget Wilson, Jerry Dilno, Kristen Beck, Ben Gomez, Autumn Sandine, Kelly Gilliand, Morgan Hurley, Sean Redmond, Jackie Jackson, Jackson Redmond, Luke Terpstra, TJ Seguin, John Kessler, Edwin Lohr, Frank Sturriddy, Lisa Cove, Will Rodriguez Kennedy. These are local San Diego veterans, LGBT folks who have continued to serve from the front and lead the way. And now I'm very excited to introduce to you today our panel of speakers who will talk to us about their service, about their time in the military, and their time since. So I'm going to ask them, when I introduce them, to introduce themselves, their name and their pronouns, the branch of the service they served in, for how long, and the organization they work with today. And then we'll get right to the question. So first up, we have Evelyn Thomas. Also joining us today is Janessa Goldbeck, Veronica Zaire, Alberto Cortes, and Clay Kilpatrick. So it's my pleasure here to bring them to the screen, and we're excited that they're with us today. So we'll start with you, Evelyn. Would you introduce yourselves to everyone?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corporal Evelyn Thomas. I'm an honorable woman veteran of the Army National Guard and the United States Marine Corps. My pronouns are her and she, and currently I'm the founder and executive director of the Sanctuary Project Veterans. We advocate for LGBT veterans and women veteran survivors of military sexual trauma access to adequate health care.
Thank you very much. Janessa, would you go next for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bob. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Janessa Goldbeck. I am a former captain in the United States Marine Corps. I was a combat engineer and a civil affairs officer. I currently, my pronouns are she, her, and currently I run a small consulting firm that works with progressive organizations around the country to pass legislation at both the state and federal level. And I also am the co-founder of the Trim and National Security Project San Diego chapter, which is a progressive policy think/do tank. I'm really happy to be here today.
And it's really great to have you on a panel for once, Janessa, instead of leading the panels with Pride. Thank you for being here. Veronica, please.
Yes, I am Veronica Zaire, former retired Major, United States Army. I started out my Army career as a cavalry scout, cavalry platoon leader, and then I served as a company commander in a number of staff jobs before I ended up with 23 years of service. And it wasn't quite 23 years, it was 22 years, 10 months, and 6 days. But I wasn't counting.
We're not counting, Veronica. No, thank you very much. And Alberto, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alberto Cortes. My pronouns are he, him, his. I had the privilege of serving in the United States Naval Submarine Force for 4 years on a pre-don't ask, don't tell years, back when you were using rowers to get through.
Very good. Thank you very much. Now, before we continue on, I understand it's a birthday today, and let me see. It's 245 years old. The United States Marine Corps.
Hoorah!
Hoorah! All right. Very good. Happy birthday. Very happy for you. Oh, there we go. Good mug. We're waiting on one person, Clay Kilpatrick, who is also a United States Marine, having a little technical trouble. Hopefully he'll be able to join us. So let me get right down to it. All of us here live at the intersection of being a veteran and being LGBT. We serve sometimes many different communities, along with other identities that we have. What are some of the challenges you've encountered as navigating these intersections? And Alberto, why don't we start with you? What are some of the challenges you found navigating these intersections?
Well, I don't even think of them as challenges. I guess I've been living in San Diego for a long time, and very much feel integrated into the community. I served in the Navy back from 79 to 83, when it was when you had to somewhat misrepresent when the question came up in the forms when you were signing up, and they asked you about whether or not you were a homosexual and or had those tendencies, or whatever the question was. I distinctly do remember answering that question. And I served in the military, and I came to San Diego in '83 after serving in the military and integrating into society. The challenges go beyond just being an LGBT person, but how does one come back into society? And I remember the struggles about becoming a civilian and fearing and thinking that it was my doing, that it was such a hard time to come back into society. Just generally speaking, as far as integrating into the LGBT community, I think that was my saving grace, was having a more defined community to come to when I came to San Diego. And that was the connection, those connections that I made and am grateful for, and people that I've known since then, now going on 37 years of living in this town. So I guess I more am focused on the gratitude for what I did find in coming to San Diego and being a part of the LGBT community.
Thank you, Alberto. Evelyn, challenges that you may have faced navigating these intersections?
The intersection of being a Black person, a woman, a lesbian, and a veteran, challenges depending on the audience. At times, I find myself juggling these roles when I present myself to the world, whether it's in my personal, professional life. When I first left the Marine Corps, I personally had the challenge identifying as a veteran. Today, I face the challenge of being recognized as a veteran. The average person's concept of a person, of a veteran, is a white male. The image of a Black woman, a Black lesbian, does not pop in their mind. Women that serve in the military are constantly combating the groupthink of the definition of a veteran. And I'm tired of people asking me, actually, when I go to access my earned and entitled benefits, whether it's with a person or organization, they always ask the question, what branch of service did your husband serve in? And I'm tired of them asking that question. And I love to see the reaction on their face when I reply to them, I'm the veteran.
Yeah.
And back in 2012 and 2011, 2012, when I was on the executive board for the United Veterans Council of San Diego, majority of the members of this organization were male veterans that ranged from World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War areas. And the challenge working with these older white male veterans with their traditional ideas and concepts was addressing the stereotypes that they have of lesbian women. So it all depends on the audience that I'm presenting myself to. And the most constant challenge that I have today is being recognized as a veteran.
Thank you. Janessa, you mentioned, in fact, I saw you at the Wall of Honor last week, the LGBT Community Center's Wall of Honor induction ceremony. Veronica, Alberto, nice job. Congratulations on putting on a wonderful program. But Janessa, you spoke about you joined, and right while you were still kind of in officer training school, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell was overturned and decertified. And you were able to be your true, authentic self. Has the challenge there been different for you? These intersections?
Yeah, well, I definitely stand on the shoulders of giants and was able to serve openly from basically week 7 in officer candidate school because of the work that was done for so many decades before I joined the Marine Corps. So to all those who served under Don't Ask, Don't Tell and stood up and fought against that policy, I want to thank you personally for allowing my service to be possible as an openly gay woman in the Marine Corps. And, I was able to be out, like I said, from like week 7 at Quantico. And Evelyn touched on what it's like to be a woman in the military in general. But in the Marine Corps, we are particularly skewed. We're less than 10% female. And so just being a woman in the room is already an interesting dynamic. But I actually found that being able to be out and gay gave me something to talk about with a lot of my male peers who might not have ever met a gay person before or a gay woman. Like in a weird way, I was able to connect with a lot of straight men, talking about, navigating the challenges of moving in with our girlfriends for the first time, or what it's like to have a long distance relationship. And not that you couldn't have those conversations otherwise, but for them, they were able to sort of see something. We had something in common. And I have a distinct memory of talking about, moving in with my girlfriend at the time, with a buddy of mine who was, deeply conservative, Southern white man, who had never had a gay friend before. And as we were chatting about this thing, he looked at me and he said, I always thought like lesbians were like butch and like you're not really that butch. And I'm like in my Marine Corps outfit with like a lip of tobacco in, like a huge machine gun in my hand, dirty. I'm like, how could I be more like any more butch? Like this is and what he meant, what he was trying to say in an imperfect way was, I always felt very alien, like gay people, LGBT people, trans people always felt very alien to him. But here was somebody who he was connecting with on a human level. So in a way, like my gayness was kind of an advantage in the Marines over other like straight women, because I had something that they didn't have in terms of an ability to connect with these guys. And so, it's a really interesting dynamic to navigate. And, being a woman in the military, being a gay person in the military, or queer person, trans person, it's just, I think you're hypersensitive to the institutional discrimination. And if you're in a position of leadership, that means you're responsible for addressing that wherever you see it, whether or not it's directly related to you or is an issue of race or gender discrimination. So I took that responsibility really seriously, knowing that I had that ability.
Thank you. I want to just take a minute to Don't Ask, Don't Tell. was a policy that was implemented in 1993 under President then Bill Clinton. Whoa, stop the presses. We have Clay. Well, we had Clay.
No, I'm here. I turn light on.
Oh, hey, welcome. We're glad you could join us. Could you very quickly introduce yourself, your name, pronouns, and the military department you served in?
Absolutely. So my name is Clay Kilpatrick. I am on the San Diego Military Department Pride co-chair. I also serve as on the Wall of Honor Council, and I am a proud Marine Corps veteran, have birthday Marine Corps, and yeah, that's my story.
All right. Well, we were just thank you for joining us, Clay. We're sorry that we had a little technical issue there. We were just talking about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I was mentioning that it was implemented during President Clinton's first term in 1993, and it was in effect from 1994 all the way until 2011 when President Obama was able to have it repealed. But under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, over 13,000 of our fellow service members were discharged, and often very painfully, often very difficultly, because of their being LGBT. I kind of want to just quick show of hands. How many served either before Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Anybody served before Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Anybody served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell? And then Janessa afterwards. Okay. So for those for those before, was it much different? I mean, did you still have to sort of be in that military closet, so to speak, and be careful of pronouns and weekends? Clay, and we're gonna go to Veronica first, and then we'll come back to you, Clay. All right. Veronica, you served both before and during, right?
Correct. The big deal about before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was when what would happen is that no one. You were afraid. You were like in a double closet, okay? And the double closet is you're basically hiding from yourself, okay? And then you're hiding from exhibiting anything that might betray your inner identity, okay? And I think that's what characterized my service before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Actually, what I found interesting is that it was harder. The military culture during Don't Ask, Don't Tell was we got to find every gay person under the rock. We have to turn over every single rock to get these fuckers, these people out. Excuse me. But basically, that's what their attitude was.
All right, Clay, did you see similar? You were in before.
I got out just before. I got out in 1992, in February of 92, and I think it went in April after that. But to echo what Veronica was saying, yeah, I mean, it was, the big thing is, I think for me, it was initially just not admitting to myself I was gay and not wanting to be gay. But when I did sort of open that closet door, it was here in San Diego, and I went to Hillcrest and started meeting people. But to hide everything about, like I couldn't talk about where I went at night. I couldn't talk about who I hung out with. Even to the point, like back in the day, we used to have base stickers on our cars, and it would say, where you were and everything. And I remember anytime I parked somewhere in Hillcrest, I would put a car cover on so that if anybody was walking around Hillcrest, they could identify my car as being related to being at MCRD. And so just this constant fear that I was going to say something wrong was just this huge weight that you carried. So,
I'm thinking this Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And was it Veronica who mentioned or was it Evelyn, the double closet? Okay. I think that's something that really non-military people might not understand. And Janessa, I'm not sure how much, I know you're, obviously very, very intelligent and up on things, but, that double closet, accepting yourself as being gay and then trying to navigate being gay in the military. And Clay, you mentioned it real well, watching pronouns, watching how we speak to each other, being careful. I remember I was in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I had a chief who hated the fact that I lived in Hillcrest. And he used to give me a hard time every Monday. What'd you do in Hillcrest this weekend? How was Hillcrest this weekend? And I couldn't really do anything about it because I had to be very careful about tiptoeing that, don't present the fact that I might be gay. And did anybody else struggle with that double closet either before or during? Veronica? And then
Yeah.
Evelyn. Veronica and then Evelyn.
One of the things I wanted to add was that in the period before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but almost amplified afterwards, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell became policy, was there seemed to be a great deal of performance that I had to do. Because I remember one time I was walking from the orderly room down to the motor pool for stables for the tank maintenance, and I was walking and I was very cognizant of myself. And after transition, I've never been cognizant of my walk anymore, and I was afraid of exhibiting a little bit too much swish, as a British officer friend of mine would say.
Yep.
When we're not live, if we could mute our mics, we're getting a little bit of feedback, my technical people. Evelyn, why don't you share with us a little bit about what we were going to share?
Well, like I served prior to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we go to a lesbian serving in the military. And I remember I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, but I would spend all my social time down in San Diego, mainly at the Flame and Club on Bay, which those are the lesbian clubs. And I remember dreading Monday mornings, because on Sunday night, I had to come up with the story, basically a lie, and come up with the right pronouns and discuss, because always when I came in on Monday morning, someone in my platoon would ask, Thomas, what you do for the weekend? So I had to make sure I used the right pronouns, and I had to give a general description of what I did for the weekend, so no one would ask me questions about, who did I spend my time with? What did I do for the weekend? Who's your boyfriend? Who's your husband? I remember the dreadful Sundays, my stomach would turn because I would have to go and present this lie in order to protect myself for survival, because if I revealed the truth, I would be discharged out of the military. And I knew exactly what to expect, because on the day that I took the oath to enlist in the military, I was asked 2 questions. Are you a homosexual? And have you ever participated in homosexual activity? And I knew if I told the truth, I would not be allowed to serve in the military, just because of how God made me. And I had to compromise my integrity. And I should have been the happiest day of my life taking the oath. But I knew at that moment, while I was taking the oath and raising my right hand, that I had to hide who I was, because I was being unfit and serve and protect my country and fight for its core values.
I think we all can, all of us can understand how that felt. Alberto, you were going to add something?
Think, it's interesting from listening to Evelyn and Ronnie, for example, on their experiences, that the whatever experience we had was so determined by the command and the attitudes of the commands that we served in. I was in the submarine force in New London, Connecticut, and it was pre-Don't Ask, Don't Tell. By the way, my perception of Don't Ask, Don't Tell at the time that it was being enacted was that it was intended to provide a protection to gay folks in the military. That it ended up being the way that it was in part because of the compromises in the political system of coming up with some kind of agreement. But because before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, there was asking. And I guess that's the difference. But I'm totally appreciating the horrid impact that it had once it was actually implemented. But my point, my other point is the fact that in my experience as part of the submarine force, there was almost a known, at least where I served, there was a level of respect about how you lived your life that some people would there would be little inquiry. And what I recall very clearly was you were respected for the work and the dependence on your skills in the survival of everybody, which was part of the mantra in the submarine force. When you go in a submarine and you go underwater, everybody's work becomes immensely critical to being able to come back up to the surface. And so it became so important that we just focus on knowing what we had to do and doing it right, where it was one of the few environments in my whole life that I recall where suddenly who you were and where you came from, at least when you were underway, became so much less relevant. I'm not saying, and I can also say that once we were back in port and on that pier, there was a noticeable difference of joining back into a society that was evidently homophobic, evidently racist, evidently many other things, and misogynist, etc. And that the roles of our society became very clear. It was even palpable with the straight men that I was in that submarine underway who behaved in such a different way. And the second that we were in port, there was this expected role that it was like the society and its biases seeped right back in. And I don't know if other people, especially if you were serving in environments that were, I use submarine ports because it's a highly isolated environment, that might have experienced similar kinds of differences in behavior based on the environment that you were in and how society, or the presence of society, re-engagement affects behavior, even among our shipmates or our peers.
Thank you, Alberto. Yes, I can imagine sort of an isolated group there underwater with a mission that's very focused to get back up. Janessa, you wanted to share something.
Yeah, I just, I think Alberto, what a beautiful description of the military at its best. I did also have that experience in some of my commands where, the intensity of the mission or the importance of doing the job right and well completely superseded our individual identity features and backgrounds and allowed relationships to occur that maybe wouldn't happen in our normal quote unquote society. But I did just want to share that, having served, being able to serve as an openly gay officer in the Marine Corps, one of the more rewarding experiences that I had was the opportunity to mentor young LGBTQIA individuals who were able to, a lot of them were coming from very rural, conservative places and had never had a queer authority figure in their life. And, not to say that I wasn't able to mentor straight Marines and sailors. I hope I was as well. But that getting to know your Marines and sailors, regardless of what, rank you are, NCO, staff NCO, officer, that is one of the most critical things to creating an effective unit. And if you can't get to know your Marine or sailor, what their life is like when they're not at work, who they love and who's taking care of them and watching out for them, then you are not able to put together the type of culture in a unit that will make it successful. But being able to have those conversations, have a young Marine sit down and say, I'm gay and I haven't come out to my family yet. And can we talk through how that might happen when I go home for Christmas? That is an incredible opportunity. And I'm excited to see, how our force grows and changes as hopefully in this next administration, everyone is allowed to serve as themselves.
100% there, Janessa. I'm glad we had people such as yourself in the Marines to mentor them. I know that all of you, Evelyn with your Sanctuary Project Veterans, Ronnie with the Wall of Honor and Neutral Corners, Clay with the Wall of Honor and the Pride Military Department, and certainly Alberto as Mama's Kitchen. You've taken what you've learned in the military and you've continued to be a leader in our community. And yet, I think of so many LGBT veterans that have sort of suffered in silence, just like they sometimes served in silence. we know that there's gaps in services and support for our LGBT veterans, whether it's PTSD, suicide, homelessness, healthcare in the world. Therefore, the concentration of LGBT veterans here.
Yeah.
You want to share that with our folks?
Yeah. So what we were talking about is, and this was out and equal, and we were trying to explain why San Diego, military is such a big deal, and especially the LGBT community. And so if you just sort of do statistics, even though the general population has about estimates of about 10% LGBTQ people in it, the military actually has a significantly higher number to that. And some people estimated that it's as high as 30%. And there are different factors, speaking from my own experience. I joined the military because I didn't want to be gay. Think, if I'm in the Marines, I won't be gay. And I talked to a lot of people who shared the same experience. But, the reality is I am, and I was. So let's say it's 30%. Well, then you take a city like San Diego, which has, 32nd Street, the Naval Yards, North Island, Miramar, Pendleton, the Coast Guard base, there is such a large number of military in San Diego County. In fact, we have the largest, the highest number of military, the number than anywhere in the world. So if you take that number and you say, okay, now let's just say 30% of those people are LGBTQ, or even 20%, then it does mean that there's a significantly higher number of not only active duty, but then what happens, or, once again, in my own experience is, I came to San Diego and thought, why would you ever want to leave here? And so I did and came back, didn't come back. But, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people sort of come here and then they retire here, or they get out and they never, but almost everybody here is not from San Diego, right? So we all fell in love with this. We stayed here. So you start just doing the sheer numbers and percentages. And that is why San Diego has such a very active veteran and active duty military group that then also gives back to the community. Because it's just the numbers, right? You can't duplicate this in Des Moines, Iowa. It's just not going to happen. So it does make us unique, and it does give us a wonderful opportunity to really do some exciting things. So that's the story, Bob.
All right. Thank you, Clay. So we know that our veterans, there's a large population of veterans here. What would you, if you could have your veteran wish hat, what would you like to see happening for our veterans here in San Diego? Anybody, just go ahead to jump right in.
So one of the things that I become keenly aware when I meet veterans that are either recently out or have been out of the military for a long time is that handoff that doesn't happen. How do we integrate our folks that are coming out of the military into civilian society? Because so often some of the things that I hear include, I left thinking that I had something of value to contribute to civilian society, only to be out there and realize that nobody really cared what I learned and did in the military. That's not always true for all the skills that are gained, but I hear it often, and I hear the struggle of the integration into civilian society and the disappointment about the less than warm welcome. And I would have thought that, my experience was very similar to that, but that was 37 years ago. So I would have thought that in today's day and age, it would be at least a little different. So it surprises me still that people who have gotten out within the last 10 years or so, oftentimes struggling, oftentimes dealing with challenges that are requiring exceptional attention, and somehow not being able to get through that hump and being able to live a more prosperous or more fulfilling existence post-military.
Evelyn, thank you, Alberto. I agree with you. Evelyn, did you have something you wanted to share?
One of the things, if I had my wish, um, that in every single VA medical center that we have in this nation, that they actually had a department within that VA medical center specifically for LGBT veterans. Not only that, we would have representatives from the different LGBT veterans communities around the world participate in a transition process, because I know there's a program that all the service members go through right before they are discharged from the military, so they can help them transition from military life to civilian world. I would like to have see if the San Diego LGBT Community Center can develop a program like that here locally, that we can come a part of that TAP program, where we can speak directly and work directly with these LGBT service members and kind of carry them and help them transition into the civilian world and get them actively involved in community organizations like Mama's Kitchen, volunteering at the LGBT Center so they can learn about the community, volunteer with the LGBT Veterans Wall of Honor. I just want, I can go on and on, but I wish that would be my wish, that we had an LGBT center in every VA medical center, so that we can help those men and women transition from from military world to civilian world, and help them get enrolled in some program where they can become actively involved in their community.
Thank you, Evelyn. Clay, we've talked about that at the San Diego Pride Military Department, how we can help our veterans by maybe Pride attending the TAP program and being part of that. You want to share a little bit of that, what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so everything that Evelyn said and Alberto, I agree wholeheartedly. I think the biggest, to answer your first question, Bob, is what my wish would be is, I wish all veterans would realize that just because you get out of the military, that your skills and your the things you learn don't go away, and they're still of value, and there's still a way you can be involved. I think a lot of people get out and think, I'm done. I'm done. I don't ever want to have anything to do with the military again. But over time, and some people it's months, and some people it's years or decades. All of a sudden, they get reconnected with someone who was a veteran and think, oh, this is, I don't have to put all that in the duffel bag and file it away and never to be seen again. And so to help people who are getting out of the military, though, that is something that Pride Military Department has been reaching out to try to see what services can we help do. So, when you're making that transition from active duty to veteran, it is scary. And I think the military does a pretty good job of trying to set you up, but they also kind of just kick you out. Like, if you don't ask the right questions, no one gives you the answers. And so I mentor a lot of people who are getting out and try to help assist. And what I always talk about is like the VA is like, the thing you don't see is like there's one door you have to go through. But behind that door, there's 100 other doors of people who are waiting for you to knock on the door so they can help you. The problem is none of the doors are labeled. And if you don't know to even ask the question, how do you even know what door to knock on? If you have all these people waiting to be like, boy, if they would just walk in the door, I could help them with, education or mental health or housing or find all these things, but none of the doors have labels on them, and you don't even know what you don't know. So how do you know who to go ask? And so one of the things I would like our department to be able to do is to be that resource where people can call and say, hey, I'm getting out. What do I need to know? Like, how do I make this transition? So I think that's my big wish I just wish active duty going on to veterans knew that there are people they can talk to that can help them deal with the bureaucracy of or just how to get out, like how to pay your electric bill, or that you're trans, like, Veronica Ryan has wonderful resource, reaching out and giving back to the community, like Mama's Kitchen and Pride and the Center. That's what we want people to know. There are things there for people to get involved with, and we're here to help.
Thanks, Clay. Thank you very much. Evelyn, you mentioned the VA. Let's see if I can do that. I got 2 VA cards here, and it's because I can't figure out how to use my computer. But at the 2019 Pride Festival, back in the military tent sponsored by Northrop Grumman, we had 2 members of the VA there who were outreaching and specifically to the LGBT veteran community. So I will put it out there today. If there are any LGBT veterans who are listening, who are needing some sort of resource from your VA, contact Bob at San Diego Pride, and I'll put you in touch with these 2 folks who are leaning into the LGBT community and trying to serve the LGBT veterans of San Diego. Veronica, you had something you wanted to share, please.
Yeah, it's not brain surgery, guys. There needs to be increased liaison, okay? Increased liaison between San Diego Pride, between the center here, between the Navy that's here, and between the American Legion and VFW, okay? Between the, and also the VA. Between those 5 organizations, they ought to be able to provide wraparound services for every single LGBT veteran.
I agree. I agree, Ronnie, but oftentimes the LGBT veteran sometimes doesn't feel welcome at some of those organizations. So there's that.
That's why they need some, and that's why Pride in the center, and I'm going to put it right back at the center in Pride. Both those organizations, they need to do some increased outreach to those highly conservative organizations that there may be some discomfort in working with and liaisoning with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And having recently transitioned out of the Marine Corps in August of 2019, I was impressed to a degree with how the transition process works now. But Evelyn mentioned earlier that sort of the idea of what a veteran is kind of, I think these programs are designed for the majority of the population, which are white cis men. And the folks who come in and speak to the Marines and sailors who are transitioning out reflect that. And so I think there would be, I love the idea of having a representative from the center or SD Pride actually at TAPS to say, hey, come to this event, come, we'll feed you and learn what we're all about. On top of that, I really want to echo the idea of having an LGBTQ specific health center. Since I just got out, I just am re-experiencing civilian medical services, and I went to a Planned Parenthood as my first civilian medical experience. And I literally, I'm a Marine officer. I don't really cry a lot in public, but it made me tear up when I went into the exam room and my doctor led with, what are your pronouns? The questions were really inclusive. I didn't feel like I was like an outlier for having the responses that I had. And, after 7 years of military medicine and feeling very much like awkward, even as an O3, receiving that kind of care, it just really, I think it can't be stressed enough. And then the other 2 things I would say are we need to ensure that we're doing, we're getting civilian accreditation for folks who have skill sets in the military that are transferable in the outside world. And in recent years, I think the Department of Defense has made this a little more of a priority, but you should not spend 12 years as an electrician and then have to leave and pay for a whole new certification on the civilian side. And we don't do that perfectly now. The last thing I would say is, I think that, I got out about a little over a year ago, and I'm just now kind of like processing a lot of that. I left with a lot of advantages that many service members don't have. A college, I already had a college degree. I worked in the civilian world before I was in the Marines, so I had a career to return to. And I see transition as like a 1 to 2 year long process. And I'd like to see a system in place where we basically assign a social worker to a veteran, because the opportunity cost of that person slipping through the cracks and winding up homeless or taking their own life, it's too great. And the resources that we could provide to take this highly competent, skilled individual who is a patriot and cares about making a difference in the world, and assigning them, from the highest levels, a caseworker who's going to call and proactively check on them, who's going to let them know about those unmarked doors that you were talking about. I think that we need to reframe what transition means to us when we think about how much money the U.S. government invests in every soldier and airman and Marine and sailor. and I guess Space Force man now. That's a lot of money. And from just a dollars and cents perspective, it makes sense that we ensure that these people are transitioned into a life of purpose and meaning, not to mention all of the moral and ethical reasons why that's the right thing to do.
Those are really very pointed and relevant. I think, though, what I would add to that is a more intentional invitation to organizations that are providing services to veterans, like Veterans Village of San Diego, just as an example, to be a part of our community and be at our table, for example, at the Community Leadership Council, which can provide both insight for what we have in our community for them, and the opportunity of sharing what they have available, because some of those organizations we may perceive as homophobic are much more enlightened than we may think. And if they're not, we provide the opportunity for engagement in the community in a way that can make them be more responsive and attentive and sensitive to the unique needs of our community. I know that there are some leadership or has been leadership in organizations like that have been members of our community that are running those organizations or have. And so how do we connect through the leadership resources and the coalitions that we have existing already to better know what we do and better us know what they do and how we can work more closely together.
Thank you, Alberto and Janessa. Those were great points. I want to kind of shift us, because we're coming towards the end of our hour, and I wanted to shift us to some fun questions. I mean, it's been a great discussion, but I want to bring it into a little bit of fun. Join the Navy and see the world. That's what I was promised. That's what my recruiter told me. Alberto, you joined the Navy and you saw under the world, but you got to go up. Clay, Evelyn, Veronica, Janessa, tell me one of your favorite, quickly, one of your favorite duty stations, most exotic, whatever, and why. And we'll start with you, Clay.
Oh, that's a good one. So I was fortunate enough to be stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and I did 3 tours there. And I actually got on a Westpac, and I got to go to Thailand and Hong Kong. We deployed a lot to the Philippines, Korea. But I think for me, probably the one that I still think about every Christmas is I was in Hong Kong at Christmas, and I can still remember going up Victoria Peak and seeing the city all lit up. And, one of my favorite pictures is we took a picture of some of my Marine buddies and I walking through Hong Kong, and I'm 6'3", and there is a sea of little black heads about this tall. And then there's like my buddies are about a little bit taller, and then there's me. And it's so funny because everyone was not 6 foot tall. And, but every Christmas I think about how beautiful Hong Kong was at Christmas. And I feel very lucky to have gone to all the places that I got to go to.
Thank you. Evelyn, how about you?
I was with a base unit, detachment of MCRD. We trained the recruits that were coming into the Marine Corps. My last station was Weapons Field Training Battalion on Camp Pendleton. And one of the things I really appreciated about that is when we did PT, we would have to run in the tomato fields, and the tomato fields were no longer in existence. They were along the I-5, and it was right along the beach. And I love that because when I was in agony of running on the beach and going through this PT, I could look over to the ocean and say, at least I got that to look at. I'm going through this pain.
Thank you. Veronica, how about you? Where was your most enjoyable duty station?
Oh, mine was Dinkelsbühl, Germany. It's on the Romantistrasse between Vienna and Würzburg, and it's a gingerbread house city. It's a walled city from the Middle Ages, and our unit was told to take up fighting positions in the town. And we got to spend the night there in the town square. And when I got up in the morning, I went over to the local bakery and I got the great cup of German coffee and a big the biggest Danish that you could find, and it was warm, and it was the best duty station of all. It was just a delight. And
That's
here
great.
we were supposed to be in the field.
Uh-huh. Janessa, how about you? How about with the Marine Corps?
Yeah, well, first I want to apologize to Angela in the comments for leaving out the Coast Guard in my earlier comments. So I'm from San Diego. I was actually born and raised in Encinitas, and was really fortunate to be stationed here twice. First as a second lieutenant at Miramar, and then my last duty station I was at MCRD San Diego, which is just a real treat to be at. Just, it's like the most motivated place on earth. But my favorite duty station, I had a platoon. I was deployed to Eastern Europe in support of NATO operations in 2017. I had a platoon in Romania and a platoon in Norway. Oh. And the Norway platoon was in a town, no joke, named Hell. And it was, very cold there. And I got to ping back and forth between those two places every couple of weeks. So it was a really neat experience, and, pretty fun to have a bunch of ticket stubs that say like "to hell" on them.
That's great.
So Bob, I want to amend my answer. My favorite duty station, if I could be a 24-year-old drill instructor for the rest of eternity, I would do that every minute of the day. MCRD, being a drill instructor in MCRD was probably one of the best things that for me was it. And if I could just be 24 and doing that every day for the rest of my life, I would do that in a heartbeat.
All right. Alberto, did you get to see much of the world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was also drawn by the Join the Navy, See the World motto. I was a poor kid from the South Bronx living in Puerto Rico, and the only way out was going into the military, and it was going to be the Navy, and I did, and I absolutely loved my 4 years in the Navy. I got out only because I was gay, and I was conscious that I didn't want to live in the closet for a career of any kind. And it was a sad and hard decision to make. But I will say that the whole Join the Navy, See the World, I was eager to go to Europe, and the Navy was going to make it happen. And it did within the first 6 months I joined. And I kind of go like, okay, done this, can I leave? No, I can't. I got to finish my contract. But I absolutely recall I was on a combat storage ship waiting to get sent to submarine school. And we were going to the Mediterranean. And I remember being on that boat, seeing the first glimmers of light of Rota, Spain, thinking, oh my God, I made it to Europe. and got to do 2 Mediterranean runs, which I enjoyed thoroughly. I enjoyed the environment thoroughly, and was always and continue to be very grateful that when I got out, I struggled, and it would be many, many years before I would find a place again that felt like my flock, so to speak. So I think of the whole experience in a very joyful way.
Thank you, Alberto. You mentioned contracts. When all of us went into the military, maybe with the exception of the officers, I can't quite recall, but the enlisted, we signed an enlistment contract. And I joke with people that I had an agreement for warm weather only, because I did tours of duty in Puerto Rico, in La Maddalena, Italy, and then San Diego. And it was really fun for me. I want to ask another question about the food, because everybody talks about the food. I know for me, it was a steel deck picnic. I had never understood, I never heard of it. Of course, who would have if they weren't in the military? And some of you might be familiar with steel deck picnic, but what was your favorite food or your worst? Tell us a food story. It's almost lunchtime. In fact, it's soon we'll be eating lunch. Tell us a food story. Veronica. Yep. You're on mute, Veronica. There you go.
Okay, we used to do something called Ranger cake, and we used to wrap this dough into a aluminum foil. We used to rig a little basket in the engine compartment of our 113s we used to bake something called Ranger cake, and it's a mixture of cornmeal, flour, baking powder, water, and you throw in some cinnamon, sugar, and all of that. And I tell you what, after a week or two in the field, and all of a sudden you eat something like that because you've been surviving on MREs, that's like heaven.
Evelyn, what about you? Any special food for you? Nope. Hold on, Evelyn. We can't hear you. We'll come back to you, Evelyn. Okay, Janessa, how about you? Any special food over there in Hill, Norway?
Well, I feel like as a Marine, I probably need to tell a story about drinking rather than eating, but I will keep it to food. Back to the Norway situation. So my Marines and sailors were on a Norwegian reserve base as our operating base, and we'd go out, punch out into the field and out into the above the Arctic Circle for training, but that's where they were primarily housed. And we had a contract with the Norwegian food service provider there. Normally, if you're American military overseas, there's a big Sodexo operation, in the chow hall, but the DoD had contracted with the Norwegians. And so when we first got there, I very much remember the first morning, we'd been flying for like days to get there. And the guys and gals all got up to go get some chow in the morning. And we get to the chow hall, and it's like fresh smoked salmon, muesli, like Greek yogurt, wonderful high quality food that you would never see in a Sodexo chow hall. But all my Marines and sailors are like 19-year-olds from Oklahoma, and they're like, "What? Where are the tater tots? Like, what? Where are the hash browns? What is this, fish in the morning?" And so it took some liaisoning with the Norwegian food service providers. It was probably the best quality food that they would ever get at a chow hall, but not exactly right for the palate of teenagers.
I can imagine. Folks, I told Evelyn when we talked yesterday that we could probably talk all afternoon. And I would really love to talk all afternoon with all of you, because we've only scratched some of your service that you've done since leaving the military. Veronica with Neutral Corners and the Wall of Honor. Alberto with Mama's Kitchen. Clay with the Pride Military Department, moving it from a contingent to a full department, and being on the Wall of Honor. Alberto being on the Wall of Honor. Evelyn being on the Wall of Honor. And of course, Janessa being, I think of you as kind of being new to San Diego. Of course, you've been here all your life, but some of us are just meeting you now for the first time. I'm in awe of what you give back to San Diego. And I appreciate your time here this afternoon. I appreciate your service, and I thank you for your service to this country. We are all patriots. We are all people that believe very strongly in the promise of what we have in America. So I want to say thank you. We're running out of time, and Clay, Alberto, Veronica, Janessa, and Evelyn, thank you very much for being here with us this afternoon.
Bob, I just want to say one last thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to reach out, though, and thank the Center and Pride for all of the current outreach and past outreach that both organizations have done to the military, with the Center's Wall of Honor and with Pride's military department. I think it's a great, great step forward.
Amen.
I know I speak for Clay when we talk about wanting to bring those two programs even closer together for volunteer outreach programs, social programs where veterans can be together. All of you and those of you listening, very soon, Clay will be sending out a needs assessment for our LGBT veterans, a needs assessment survey for our LGBT veterans. And we ask you all to share that with your community of veterans, so we can get feedback on how Pride's military department can better serve our community. So I know that my technical people back of house are saying, wrap it up, Bob, and I will do that. And please know that Bob is here if I can do anything for you all. Happy holidays. I hope you and your family have a great Thanksgiving. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Semper
Thanks,
Fi. Happy birthday, Marines.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, Marine. Yeah. So we just want to thank a few people here at San Diego Pride for helping to make this possible. We'd like to thank Melanie, who helped with us, as well as Alex and Tyler behind the scenes. Coming up on Thursday night, it's the second Vibe with Pride. Our entertainment department, run by the fabulous Gardenia Partridge, is having our second Vibe with Pride. The host is Jay Rodriguez, and the guests on Thursday night are Jordy, Kalina Zanders, and David Hernandez. You won't want to miss the Vibe with Pride on Thursday, day after tomorrow. Happy Veterans Day to everybody. And if you are able, consider donating to San Diego Pride so that we can continue these types of programs, not only with our veterans, but also with our youth, our different coalitions. And we thank you very much. Happy Veterans Day. Bye, everyone.